right, everybody ready to go? Welcome to Planning Board for July 12th. Seeing everyone here, we'll call to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Any public comment? No. Any comment from the board? All right, we'll dig right into our A&R plan for 830 Massachusetts Avenue.
Thanks, everybody. Greg Miller with Dillis and Roy. Do you need me to put the plan up on the easel, or do you have it all in front of you? It didn't change from last week.
Okay.
I don't know if they want to show it on TV or if it's shared on the screen, or...
Pull it up. And did everyone get the communication from Mr. Burlingame regarding the lot width?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? I know that was the primary issue that we spoke about at the last meeting.
And that's really all I had to present, so I'm happy to see that you got it, and I'm happy to add any commentary if the board needs it.
If everyone's all set, I'll entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the A&R request for 830 Massachusetts Avenue.
I would second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. You're
Thanks a
all
lot.
set.
That was a quick one.
Thank you. Wait, I can give you the plan.
I will. Sure.
All right.
Today's the 12th.
And did we already request a footnote to address that in our zoning?
Yeah, I got it in my... Okay. And I think that whole section would probably be a next stop.
Well, I think the simple fix would be to just add a row for limited business, right? Just to clarify that.
It might be worth looking at the whole section before taking it to town meeting, just to have the one
Row.
chart, just because if everybody looks at it and says, hey, we should probably change this or that too, and we go back a year or two after adding the one, it makes it just a little neater.
Time for a new pen, Alan.
We noticed that all pens that we signed our documents with the last meeting were gone.
Oh, really?
There you go.
I was in there.
There you go.
He was looking for a pen.
You know the drill. I don't have to explain it to you. Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to our next appointment is a public hearing for 360 Flat Hill Road, a scenic road application. Adam, will you do the spiel for us?
I suppose I can do that.
Thank you.
The Lunenburg Planning Board will hold a public hearing on July 12th, 6:35 p.m., Town Hall, 17 Main Street, Lunenburg, Massachusetts, to hear and review a request for the cutting of approximately 3 trees and construction of 4 driveways onto 5 lots, with lots 2 and 3 sharing a common driveway at 360 Flat Hill Road, map 087, parcel 0025, under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 15C, Scenic Road Designations, and under Mass General Law, Chapter 87, Section 3, Cutting of Public Shade Trees. Owner applicant is Matson Homes 2, Inc., 129 Mason Road, Ipswich, New Hampshire, 03071. The application and plans are available for viewing in the planning office. And this hearing is being held in conjunction with the tree warden.
Thank you. And just for quick clarification, we're only doing scenic road. The driveway as it's proposed meets the bylaw, so it doesn't need approval because it splits the lot line, is my understanding.
That is correct.
So, is the applicant here? Excellent. If you'd like to step up and introduce yourself, name and address for the record, please.
I'm Ken Mattson with Mattson Homes 2 Inc. and from New Ipswich, New Hampshire. And I'm here just to answer questions if you have any questions on what we're doing and explain it if it wasn't explained well enough in our application. There is 3 trees. I think we got 2 that are actually showing on there that my engineer drew that we were going to have to cut. I believe it's on the common driveway one. And then we were going to plant 2 new trees to replace that, but when we were out looking at it, researching it, there's one other tree that's over 10 inches at the bottom, but when you're up about maybe 3 feet off the ground, it branches out in like 3 different directions, and it looks like it's going to probably interfere with that one branch coming out over the driveway. So we'd be taking that tree down too.
I had one question on lots 2 and 3. Those appear to be reduced frontage lots?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
My only question there is, I think on reduced frontage lots, don't they have to have their own access?
No. They're allowed to do a common driveway. The throat needs to be able to provide access.
Okay,
So the intent is that you don't create a throat that is a stream or has the inability to use as access. But under the common driveway provision, it does say that you can use a common driveway on reduced frontage lots.
okay, all right.
The other thing that I remember about the reduced frontage was the percentage of encumbered by easements or...
Correct, it's 30%. So on 50 feet to 12 foot is within that 30%.
I didn't start off by stating that I am across the street. I did do that today and before, it's a done deal. I do not believe it will affect me.
I just have a question on the pictures that you sent. I can't see the stone wall, so I'm wondering if you have any
It is,
pictures.
it's a very thick mess all the way down through there. The stone wall is a very limited stone wall. It's, from the best I can see what I've been in there, a lot of it's pretty well just kind of piled up stones kind of going through there. But I think as engineer wrote in there that where we remove stones to go through the wall, we will incorporate them back into the stone wall to try to make it, improve it anyway. And then there's one area where there's an entrance into that apple orchard now that will not be used. We will make a simulated stone wall to at least bring it up and match what we have on.
Okay, and you're not going to modify the existing stone wall, you're just going to fill
If we
in?
modify it, it's going to be for an improvement.
Well, I have a question on that. If this is a historical stone wall, what are the restrictions regarding stone walls?
There are none. The scenic road says that you can't alter or remove a stone wall without the planning board having a hearing. So there are 4 places that the stone wall is being punctured in order to create the driveways. What Mr. Mattson seems to be saying, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is if you look to the left of the plan, there's a note that says that they'll use stones removed from the driveways to infill this portion of the wall here, where there's a current.
I understand
But
that.
there's nothing that says that you can't, that you need a special permission or otherwise to alter an existing stone wall, historic or otherwise.
Okay, so I guess my question is, I personally think it's important to keep New England stone walls in place. So my question is, when you say you may improve it, what does that mean? Is it your intention to just repair those sections, or is it to improve the entire stone wall?
I can't answer that because we haven't gotten into it. We did look into, and I think everybody knows it, it's an unlimited of how much money you could put into, there's nice stone walls out there, and it's, I guess, so I'm just saying, the stone wall will be better than it is that's there now. But I don't,
Well, that's why I asked for the question of the walls. I have concerns about, I understand what the bylaw says about, if you puncture the stone wall, you need planning board approval. And I have no problem with the puncturing of the stone wall for the driveways and for this proposed development. But I would have concern if you were going to remove the original sections of the stone
no,
wall in
we
the
are not
properties.
removing only place we're removing stone wall is where the driveway
Okay,
entrances
that's
are.
my question.
And
So the
then
rest of the wall will
There's
remain.
one section where there is no wall, where the entrance is now. We are gonna put stones across there.
Similar to what's there now?
Similar to what's there, or better, at least.
Okay,
That's
but
what-
you're not going to touch the
No,
original
no,
walls
we're
along
not
the
planning-
frontage?
Right.
Okay, other than for the driveways?
Yeah, other than the driveways, yeah,
Okay,
that's,
that was really my question.
yeah.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes.
And again, I just want to clarify this, because I heard you say you may improve the stone wall in some places, and I know you and I have had conversations, excuse me, offline, and you said there are some places where the wall is not as solid or as high quality as other places. And you said that you may improve it in some places, and am I to understand, sort of as a follow-up, as your intent is to match the construction that's there, not create one of these stone walls that you might see someone build at a new house that are brick and mortar, or, mortared stone? You're looking to recreate the piled stone wall?
Right,
Okay.
yeah, that's too,
I didn't want us to do all this and then have you
Right.
improving something and it be a misunderstanding in the future.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Before we go much further, I'd like to get the DPW director to weigh in as our tree warden to see if he has any concerns about the trees to be removed.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you. Just a couple of questions from the application, and the pictures in the application, and also taking a look at the site. Where the driveways are shown in the pictures versus compared to the plan that was submitted, I guess my question is, looks to be more trees, there's lots of saplings, there's lots of younger growth. I don't know what was identified, what was, if there was a definition of what was identified, over a certain caliper, or, starting with a certain diameter and going up from there. Because when you look at some of the pictures, it's hard to tell, and because it is so overgrown out there, it's kind of hard to look at and see exactly what's there. For instance, the Lot 4 driveway picture shows, several, from what I can see, decent-sized diameter, 3-4 inch diameter trees that on the plan aren't necessarily identified as being removed. So it just seems like there's a lot going on out there. There's a lot of overgrowth, and it's really hard to kind of decipher what's there. So I guess my question is, how were the trees identified on the plan? Because it looks like there's more.
I can answer that.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, it was, we were told that we had to identify all trees that were 10 inches or larger. And that's what was identified, and we are planning on cleaning that all up and probably taking most all trees out of there unless that are under that, just to clean the whole up, so I would say anything smaller than 10 inches, we'd feel that we would have the freedom, unless we're told not to take them down. We may leave them if they're in a good place and we think that they improve the property and the frontage, but that's what we identified.
I said it was 6 as well. I thought we had talked about 6.
Was it
It's
6?
6 minus.
I don't remember, did he have it on his plan? It seems like it's written on a plan.
On the plan, he specifies trees 10 inches and larger, so that's probably where the,
That's where I got a misunderstanding in, and that's what I had related to him.
yeah.
So
The scenic road says 6 and up.
it does say 6 and
Yeah.
up, okay.
So, I mean, you know,
Yeah,
Well, with that being said, I think probably the best course of action is to re-identify the trees, because, I mean, the intent with the scenic road is for us to have a clear understanding of what we're granting. And if we don't have a clear depiction of what is out there, it's really difficult for both parties to move forward, and for the tree warden to look at it and say, yep, they got permission to pull these trees down. So just in light of that information, I think we should look to continue to our next meeting, right?
And if we're going to continue it, I would like to ask that we get better pictures of the stone wall for the next meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, and if I could, before you make the motion to continue.
Yes.
And this is maybe more of a question for Adam. Adam, you and I briefly did discuss at one point trees being tagged and marked for removal. Is that something we require, or I don't know if they have to be posted?
they will need to be posted, and that should be done by the applicant. And I think what my clarification question is, you just said you're going to clean up everything. Define everything. I mean, are you talking from the stone walls out? Are you talking
well,
from
I'm
the stone
talking
walls
from the
in?
edge of the road into the property, so when you drive by, you're actually able to see back into the, so it would be all the brush and all that, and now it looks like anything 6 inches or bigger has to stay. It
And
has
from
to
the
be,
edge of the
right.
road to the stone wall is town property.
Right.
And I don't necessarily think Rob is going to be upset if someone mows for him. But that may be a conversation you want to have with the DPW prior to doing it.
Yeah.
And certainly we can do through this process. And once you get behind the stone wall, that's yours. So we're talking about trees in front of the stone wall.
Front of the stone wall.
On the town property as public shade trees that are, and anything adjacent to the stone wall would be part of the scenic road hearing.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have 4 punctures that you're
Yeah.
putting through the stone wall. Obviously, all of those trees are coming out.
Yeah.
So those are important too.
That's where the 3 would be that I'm
The
saying.
3 large ones, yeah.
Yeah.
But there also may be a couple of smaller.
Yeah, there
offshoots in
could be
there.
now some
So I would
go down to the
concentrate
6.
on flagging those, because you know where they are. And as you move between the driveways, be thoughtful about what you actually want to take out. Is it just the underbrush, or is it the trees? And if
Yeah.
it's the trees, how big are they? Because that's, I think, what's going to inform what the 5 people to my left really want to dig into.
So if I understand it right, I gotta have my engineer go out and locate on the plan. Is this true? All the
Everything
trees?
over
it's
6.
Everything over 6, because all we have now is everything 10 and
Yeah.
over.
Well, everything over 6 that you want to touch is really what we're concerned about.
So you would be better off to go out with some orange spray paint.
Well, we do with the 3 that we're cutting down, we have them orange
Well,
spray
yeah,
painted and
but
flagged.
find the other ones that are 6 and over, that you're like, oh, this, it's ugly, I don't like it, it needs to go, it's dying, whatever, and mark them.
Okay,
And, Mr. Chairman, I would
Yes.
ask if it makes sense to do a site visit in this case. It
I
might
don't
be-
have any issue with it.
I
How
think
does
it might
every-
be easier to visualize what it is we're approving if we can go and see the marked trees.
Yep. Yep. We can certainly post a meeting
You don't need to post a site
or-
visit as long as you don't
Okay.
deliberate.
Okay,
So if it's information gathering, you can do it individually, you can schedule a time when all or most of the members can go, and as long as there's no deliberation about the merit of anything that's there and no one's stating an
fine.
opinion, it's this tree, this tree, this tree, okay, great, then you don't even need to post it.
yep.
But to clarify then, but any trees on my side of the stone wall, that's my control then. We're just talking about
Adjacent
trees.
to the stone wall. So, the stone wall kind of marks the property line.
Right.
And if you have a tree that's touching the stone wall,
Into the-
then
okay.
that's gonna fall into the scenic road. If you get beyond that, that doesn't fall into the scenic.
So the backside of the stone wall would be the defining line.
Yeah, and then obviously anything to the street.
Right.
And I would just ask that you communicate to Adam and let him know when you have all the trees marked greater than 6 inches. And that way there, we can do our site visit once everything's marked. Not that we get out there before you're done laying things out.
So all we want mark 6 inches and bigger that we're gonna take down.
Yep.
The 5 inches, 6 inches and under, the under 6 inches ones,
You don't have to worry about.
Okay.
Yeah, it's over 6 inches.
And then because it's a public hearing, we need to continue to a date certain to avoid the need to re-advertise.
Correct.
I have one more clarifying question about the spraying versus flagging.
Either works.
I think we sprayed and flagged them is what we did on the ones we did mark, them 3, but.
So we're not requiring to identify all 6 and above along the frontage, just the ones in the areas of the driveways?
Oh, no, the ones he wants to remove.
Okay.
So, it doesn't make, there's no reason to identify it as 6 and above if he's gonna leave it there.
So I would ask that rather than spray painting, they be tagged, because if we have an objection to removing something, now it's going to be spray painted.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
So I would like them to be tagged rather than spray painted.
So do I have to then pay the guy to come out there and locate them on the plan?
We're not trying to be more difficult, but it is a permitting process, and it's very difficult for anybody that is working on behalf of the town, whether it's the building commissioner or tree warden, to determine that what the work that was done according to what was approved without having a plan. And, we've had people do little drawings and try to make things to scale, but it really needs to be reflected on the plan.
Okay.
So that we have a clear understanding, and then when the tree warden or the building official gets out there, they can take a look at things and they can see bounds and how many trees and where they're located, so.
And I think, and I don't want to speak for the board, but it's a public hearing process. So however quickly you can get that done is up to you. The board can continue the hearing. They can have the hearing and talk about and deliberate the trees that they've seen on the site visit. And they can then, if everybody's in agreement, they can continue that hearing until you can provide the plan to close it and finalize it, and you at least know that you're in a good place.
So if I
mean, this
don't make
process
it, if
can
we
move
can't,
along-
it can move on to another hearing if we weren't able to produce.
Correct.
the-
If they go out and they're like, all right, you want to take down 27 trees, we in no way are going to agree to all 27 of those, we think these ones don't work, then you don't have to spend time locating those to put on the plan, because you know they're not going to agree with them. You also have the stormwater permit that you have to do here, so.
Yeah, we've got
And
that.
I know
We're
you're working on that, I know I've talked to your engineer, but you can't do any of this cutting until that comes through anyway, so I understand wanting to get everything moving, but it's not like if they approve this tonight, you'd be cutting by the end of the week. You still have other things to do, so hopefully it isn't seen as a delay, we're just trying to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Well, that's one reason why I wanted to get something in front of you guys as early as we could, because I know how the meetings can go, but, if I understand what we're saying, we can do no logging of the property until we have the storm water management.
Bylaw reads.
Okay. Well, we're right on the edge of the end of having that done so that we can start to submit that.
Okay.
I have a question about that too. We've had sites before that were clear cut and left, the stumps were left, and that wasn't a violation.
When we rewrote it, it actually says no cutting of trees.
Okay, perfect.
That was a point of contention, I think, and it was clarified and noted right.
And to clarify then, that means no cutting down the apple trees even, then? Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately. And,
Well, I'm hoping to do it all in the same move, but I haven't quite ironed that out yet. We've been trying to find someone to take the apple trees. We did have some taken out of there, but
yep. Yeah. And the only other thought that I had was on the common driveway, we don't see the whole plan, but you'll just want to make sure that that meets the bylaw in terms of splitting the property line all the way through. Not that you end up needing to redo that driveway because it doesn't, and there's some length requirements, I think,
Yeah, I believe you or your engineer spoke to Casey about that.
yeah, we're working on that.
okay.
That's one of our things
For
we're right at
fire
getting, is getting
access,
the,
I think
If you get beyond,
500 feet?
yeah, it's 500 or 650, you have to have a turnaround. Usually, if anyone's got a driveway that long, when they pull the driveway permit, the fire department says, oh, you gotta give us someplace to turn around. It doesn't even necessarily need to be paved, but it needs
Yeah,
to be
someplace that-
hard packed that they can turn an engine around if they have to.
Yep. So, just bringing this stuff up.
yeah,
not
no,
that
I'm
you
glad
have
you,
to
the more you
go
give
back
me, the
through. So,
more I, hopefully.
Any other questions from the board, concerns? Okay. So, I will entertain a motion to,
I think we should ask Mr. Mattson what his turnaround time might be.
what are you thinking?
I have to talk to my surveyor tomorrow and find out how quick he can come out and,
Well, but if we're talking about marking trees, not the plan, marking trees, getting the board in front of them for a site visit
Okay.
in order to continue the hearing to the next time we talk about it. So not necessarily a surveyed plan.
but just get the trees marked.
Yes, so the board can start to have a
Because
discussion
Oh,
about.
I
which
the
one to
engineer
take
can put them
down.
on a plan before we approve it. We just need them marked so that we can go out and take a look. Our next meeting would be July 26th, so 2 weeks from today.
So all you have to do
I
is
think
mark the
yeah,
trees between
I'll have 'em.
now
Well,
and then.
I think I can have them trees marked tomorrow. I'll try to, but I'll have to talk to Adam, let him know, because it just in case, and he can,
So so do you want to continue for the 2 weeks till the 26th? Okay.
yeah. and
That
I'm
brings up
gonna-
another question. Are we gonna be able to schedule a group visit before the next meeting, in the next 2 weeks?
Well, I was going to say, I'm out of the office after Wednesday until the following Thursday. So if you let me know tomorrow, then I can work with the board to try and schedule something before I leave Thursday morning.
Well, and I don't know that we necessarily have to meet as a group. I think scheduling-wise, it's more flexible if we just go on our own. Is
Okay,
everybody
and at
comfortable with
point,
that?
You don't even, it's not even a site visit. You can,
I'd actually prefer to go as a group, because
Okay.
I'd like to understand where the driveways are going and where, I'd like to go
Okay.
as a group, and I think it's easier for the applicant, so that way he can be there and show us.
Okay,
so, I mean, you can pre-schedule that now with
So
Mr.
when are you-
Mattson
when are
here
you
if you're
gone?
hoping he'll
When
be
are you
there.
gone?
I'm from the 15th, and I'll be back I'll be back in the office on the 22nd.
Adam, if I could just jump in real quick. You're scheduling it for the 26th for the continuation, just a little wrinkle, I'll be away that week. But that's not, I'm not sure if you can or cannot have the hearing without me. I think if we're okay with the trees, I don't know if a letter from me would suffice.
I think a letter would probably suffice.
Okay.
So Adam, did you want to be on the site visit, or how, would you
No,
like to be?
I mean,
there?
would I like to? Yes. Am I going to ask you to hold it up for me? No.
Okay.
I can go out there on my own and, I mean, I'll be back in state on Wednesday, but I don't get back until early Wednesday morning, so I wouldn't be any use coming back.
Does Thursday, the 22nd work for people in the evening?
I don't see one for me.
Yeah, I'm pretty flexible right now, so.
Thursday, the 22nd, you said? Yeah.
Does that work for you?
Does that work for you, Mr. Metz?
Thursday, the 22nd, that's 2 weeks from Thursday, a week from Thursday.
A week from
Week from
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll work.
So that gives you plenty of time to get the trees marked.
Yeah.
What time works for
What time?
people?
I don't get back into the town until about 6 PM.
Want to
Does
say
6 work?
6?
Would 6
Well, I'm
work?
checking my schedule right now to make sure I don't have any games or anything. It should be fine.
Thursday, the
Okay.
22nd at 6 PM?
Yep.
6 PM Thursday, the 22nd, at the site. Okay.
Excellent.
And I would make a motion to continue the hearing to, for the scenic road to July 26th at 6:30 PM.
Second.
All those in favor of continuing the hearing?
Aye.
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 And I for myself.
Okay.
Thank you,
guys.
Mr. Mattson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next appointment is 101 Pleasant Street, which they have asked us to continue that to July 26th.
That they have.
So we just need a motion.
Can I just ask what that does for our timeline?
Well, I actually have a signed continuance from them. So we burned 14 days from the last meeting till now. So that puts us at 67. And this will freeze it until the next meeting.
As long as it freezes until the next meeting, fine.
Yep.
I would make a motion to continue the hearing for 101 Pleasant Street to July 26th at 6:35 PM.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I for myself. Excellent. Moving on to minutes approval for June 28th.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes of June 28th, 21. And I would make a motion, and the minutes of 101 Pleasant Street, and the minutes of 711 Massachusetts Avenue from 6/28/21.
Second.
Any discussion on minutes?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I for myself. All right, moving on to committee reports. TCP BDC.
We have not met since our last meeting. I expect to be meeting in the next couple weeks.
All right. AgCom.
Agricultural Commission was unable to have a meeting due to quorum at our last meeting, and our next meeting is this Thursday.
Stormwater Task Force.
Did not meet due to lack of a quorum.
Open Space.
Has not met, will meet next week.
All right.
Capital Planning has not met.
And Economic Development, we need to appoint,
We do, we meet on the 22nd.
okay. MRPC.
MRPC has not met. Their next meeting is scheduled for this Thursday.
Excellent. And MJTC.
Has not met, and the meeting that was supposed to be Wednesday has been canceled.
That was quick.
One of the quickest, yeah. What was that about the 22nd, Adam? When you, with the-
Economic Development is meeting.
Is meeting on the 22nd?
Yes.
Okay.
At what time?
7.
Okay, because I'm just wondering if you're going to go on the site visit or if you're going to be in economic development.
We'll find out, won't we?
Stay tuned.
I thought that they said 7 worked for everybody. Maybe 6 worked for everybody. Well, either way.
All right. Moving on to our 40B application for Pondview Commons LLC. Adam, if you could kind of bring
Yeah,
us up to
so-
speed on where they're at with the application
You know, it's
process,
not, yeah, it's not
meetings.
really it's not a comp permit yet. It's the site eligibility application. So, give me 1 second, I actually can. They, well, so they have submitted to Mass Housing, which will be their subsidizing agency who determines whether or not they get site eligibility. We are in the comment period of that site eligibility request. And as you are aware, there is a site visit scheduled. It's currently scheduled for the 28th of this month. I believe it may be shifted to the 29th, which is the Thursday. I have not gotten confirmation on that, and so I don't want to say definitively. As of right now, it's scheduled for the 28th at 1 p.m. And I met with the Finance Committee on Thursday and gave them a really quick and dirty, this is what a comp permit is, this is where we are, this is what's happening. And really where we're at is providing testimony to Mass Housing about concerns the town might have about this site and this development and its eligibility and how it fits into the comp permitting process. It's not completely unheard of for the site to not be given eligibility, but it is not commonplace for it to not get eligibility once they've met the basic standards. So our comments are intended to provide a context where the site doesn't meet the standards or eligibility requirements. All the comments will come through the town manager's office, so they'll be compiled by each either individual or board, submitted to the town manager, and submitted as one package to
And-
Mass Housing.
And what's the deadline for that submission?
I don't have the deadline yet. It would be post-site visit, and if I'm not mistaken, they've extended it into mid-July based on the timing of the filing. Mid-July, mid-August, I apologize.
Can we confirm that?
I will confirm what the comment period ending is.
I think it's extremely important that we comment as a community about the potential impacts from our infrastructure standpoint. This site, if you read the application, says that they're going to be using existing infrastructure, which is not correct because it will require the extension of existing infrastructure for at least 3 miles, in some cases more. I think that's extremely important to bring out. I think it's extremely important that we flush out the costs associated with that we talk about the fact that we have a water district and that voted against this and the legislation surrounding how the water district was created, which I truly believe will require a change in the active legislation in order to extend this outside of the district. We need to talk about the fact that it is outside of the sewer district. There's a number of things that this community needs to comment on, and from a financial impact standpoint, the impacts to our police department, our fire department, our roadways, et cetera, has to be clearly outlined to Mass Housing. But I think the biggest hurdle this project faces is the fact that water and sewer is not existing. it will require an extension of several miles. So I really believe, and additionally, from a planning standpoint, when we look at our overall growth and we look at our planning, this has not fit into our comprehensive wastewater management plan. It does not fit into our master plan. So I think we've really got to make sure that we do due diligence on this application and put together a very robust letter.
Well, and from my perspective, clearly, big projects like this get a lot of attention when people start hearing that 200 apartments are going to be built, plus 100 single-family homes, which is outside the scope of this application. But from a planning board perspective, I just would like to see us focus on the issues that are specifically planning and let the other people deal with their respective areas. Like, I'm very concerned about the water district component of this, but we're not the water district.
But we are a planning agency that looks at, when we look at planning and we look at development, the water and sewer infrastructure guides what can and cannot be built from a planning perspective.
Oh, certainly, and even like in the case of the sewer commission, which, runs the sewer service, their role isn't to expand sewer. Their role is to run the infrastructure that's in place. And clearly, there's a lot going on here between extending water, extending sewer. The road certainly isn't up to par to handle that kind of traffic. Fire, police, schools, I mean, there's clearly a lot of issues. And to the extent we can address those, I agree that we need to, try to flush out as many issues as we can, but we aren't the permitting authority in this process. That goes through ZBA. And so to a certain extent, we need to just respect the process as much as possible, in my opinion. And, the project concerns me. I followed the water district expansion pretty closely, and I wasn't in favor of the proposal. But, that's up to the water district. I mean, that's their fight.
And I understand that, and I respect that, but I also don't think it's there's any issue with us outlining the impacts from a planning perspective of what would be required. Water and sewer infrastructure extension would be required, which would have to be granted by the water. I don't think there's any harm in us pointing out from a planning perspective, in order to move this project forward, what would have to happen. And, as Mr. Burney said, these are all going to be funneled to the town manager, and I'm sure she'll pick and choose the pieces she puts in a comprehensive letter.
Where are we at in terms of a workshop with town council? I understand he was on vacation.
I reached out to town council. He said he normally doesn't do it with just the planning board, and I did talk with the town manager, and she thought that it would be incredibly beneficial for all boards and commissions, including and especially the zoning board, to be included. So we were looking at doing something on the fourth Tuesday, which would be the 27th, which would be just before the site walk, and holding it someplace where there would be room for as many attendees as possible to work with town council and kind of hammer that out. The town manager's just back today from vacation, so we talked about that. She was going to look into it, talk to, I believe, the chair of the select board and council to figure that out, and as soon as I have more information, I'll pass it along.
And can we request that the water district be invited to that
Sure.
as well?
Yeah, more is more. I know that the water district had it on their most recent or their next agenda to talk about this. I saw the agenda, I just don't remember what, if it was one that had just passed or one that was upcoming. I know that the superintendent called me looking for more information than what we had gotten. I said, I have all the same information you do. And he said, oh, okay. So I know that they're at least aware of it and concerned about it. From my read through the initial application, I think that, bless you in the booth, some of these sustainable development metrics are the place where site eligibility may begin to fall apart.
Can you point to the page? Alan?
It's section 3.5. It actually came as its own call-out in the documents.
Yeah,
21 of 26.
Page what, I'm sorry?
21.
You know, in new construction, it's not revitalizing a town center or neighborhood. It's not walkable to any of the things they ask about walkability. It's not in a municipal growth center. They don't explain any of that. I mean, it's in a place where it's convenient because the developer owns it.
Oh, and let me ask about this, rehabilitation, redevelopment, improvements to infrastructure, no. Well,
So you see how it says if rehabilitation? Is he doing those things?
Gotcha, okay.
So if this were in Lowell and he owned a mill building and he were improving the 100-year-old clay sewer on the street surrounding it, that would be a bonus for them because they'd be like, oh, great, he's not helping just himself, he's helping the whole neighborhood because those types of sewers collapse all the time. But I mean, if you roll through it, there's a lot of no's in the sustainability and all of that, you know.
Well, and on page 22, this is where it says utilize existing water sewer infrastructure, yes. No, it doesn't.
I think he's splitting hairs there.
I mean,
He-
there is
because
no
there's-
existing water sewer
Yeah.
infrastructure.
Well, there's water and sewer in town.
But
Yeah.
that is a
But
very
on-
different
I
situation.
agree with you, and I think that's a reasonable point to make. I think from his perspective, he's playing the game of, well, there's water and sewer, and we're just gonna hook into it.
But if you
Even
look
if the
at his
hook in is
pro
3
forma-
A
miles.
3-mile
But if you
hookup.
look at his pro forma, it doesn't include,
There's about $4 million for off-site water and sewer.
yeah, that's not enough. Just that water extension alone is 3 million without the infrastructure within.
Okay, I understand.
That's
what you're saying.
according to Mr. O'Brien at the water district meeting. So that pro
On,
forma is,
And I would imagine that the sewer then is probably much more expensive.
yeah.
Just to point out on page 7, he does specify that the applicant will be constructing a new main to tie into municipal sewer and water. So,
I think even calling it a new main might be underplaying it a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's underplaying it in a big way.
I mean, that's what it is, but
yeah.
It's an extension.
Yeah. New main implies that there's a main there that
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
replacing.
You're gonna
or that
replace.
you're pulling a main a couple of 100 feet down the road to.
Yeah. Now, you know, picking up on Mrs. Bertram's point about the $4 million for the utility extension in his cost analysis, I can't imagine that it would be very accurate to estimate these costs without having some engineering done, and I don't know to what extent that has been done, but I can only imagine there's got to be a lot of work, especially on the sewer end of things with grade changes and pump stations and,
One would expect, I actually expected the water to be the less expensive of the two, because it tends to be a smaller line. It tends to be pressurized, so you're not trying to meet specific slope and grade.
Yeah.
Whereas with sewer, if you flatten it too much or you have too much pitch, it's
yeah.
messy.
Well, what was talked about, just so that you're aware, is if he extends the water main, and if he's able to do this through this 40B process, I don't know whether this will change, but my understanding was that he would have to create a water utility and a water tank, and then pump it from that area into the development, because the development is outside of the water district. So the $3 million that was talked about was strictly for the 3-mile run for the extension,
Not for the water
not
tower.
for the water tower
Now-
or the pump station or any of that.
He may be able to escape some of that necessity through the comp permit process. I think that Mr. O'Brien was trying to get cute with the water district, with trying to convince them to sell him water without having to extend the district. I think that once you get into the comp permit, it changes things a little bit, whether or not the enabling legislation puts the brakes on that or not, I'll leave to the people who did a lot more schooling and wear fancier suits than me. But I understand what you're saying. I think that the comp permit takes a lot of that
Well, we don't know.
finagling away. But I think my understanding of it is that it would take away the new water district aspect of it, and he would just create a customer for the water district from that, which would be borne out by not having that. But again, and I don't know if.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, I followed that process pretty closely, and the primary takeaway that I had from the meetings and the discussions with the attorneys that were present and so on was that you can't bring the water outside the district without expanding the district, because it basically makes the district boundaries useless at that point.
Right.
So the district boundaries were created to define where the service area is, and the water is meant for the people within that service area. So there's a bunch of issues there, but I think at the end of the day, all of that's going to be sorted out through town council, and also,
Water District Council.
yeah. And then my take is these are very good questions to propose to Mass
Mass
Housing
Housing,
as their,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
because I respect the intent of the 40B legislation to increase the amount of affordable housing, and make it easier and more affordable for people to live in town, but at the same time, I don't think the intent of 40B was to promote a project that has so many unintended consequences, and as far as bringing infrastructure all the way across town, and, bringing water outside the district and sewer outside the service area. I mean, you take those service areas, and they were created, the sewer service area was created through a very long process that identified exactly where sewer was needed, because DEP doesn't want to see sewer extended into areas just to promote development. They want people using on-site septics.
And the town itself was specific about where they put the sewer in order to preserve the environment, not to, like you said, expand
And
or
the rural
control.
character, which is the rural character, comes under or semi-rural character comes under the purview of the planning board and our master plan.
But I mean, even if you take the rural character out of it, the town took the tact of it was an environmental approach.
Right.
Not a development or utility approach.
Right.
They were looking to center it around the water bodies in places where
Absolutely.
it wasn't feasible to do a Title V compliant system. Or where that would be more challenging.
Yep.
Well, I was on the sewer commission,
Yeah.
and it was actually to where, as Tanner said, where on-site septic could not be supported.
So we'll have a workshop hopefully on the 27th. We'll
That's
stay
the hope.
tuned for
Yeah.
that. In the meantime, I think it probably makes sense for us to kind of collect our questions and comments and get
If you
prepared
forward
for
them all
that.
to me, I'll put together a singular document that we can then discuss at the next meeting.
Yep. So timeline-wise, we meet on the 26th, so that actually works out really well. So we can meet on the 26th and then review those questions and then hopefully go to the workshop and
So
sort
I'm
through some
actually
of the
on
details.
vacation the week of the 26th. It looks like I'm going to be coming back, but I'd like to zoom in on Monday night and just come back for the, if the department head meeting, I'd come back at 1 o'clock and then go back up to camp and then come back for the site visit. So,
There you go.
So, I probably won't look at questions till I'm back on the 22nd. And it may even be that Monday that I finally get them put together and sent out, but send them whenever you want. I am not going to say I'll check email a lot, but I'll check it intermittently. So if something comes up that you need immediate help with, let Marjorie know and she'll reach out.
okay, so I would be able to zoom in from where I am at the planning board meeting,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
So it would be under the remote participation rules,
Okay.
under the select board, and as long as there's quorum here
Yeah.
in the building, you're fine.
Okay.
I'm reviewing my notes from the master planning workshop, and I hear us talking a little bit about the development not really meeting many aspects of our master plan. What I have quickly, just looking through my notes, and I could look for more detail on this, is that we can only really kind of say this doesn't meet our master plan if our master plan also, like, has notable language within it for creating affordable housing, and I don't believe our current one does. I haven't,
Well, my first question would be, do we have a current master plan?
No, we do not.
I mean,
It's-
we have a master plan. It's more current than many communities.
We currently have an outdated one, yes.
I mean, it is technically outdated.
Where are we with the master plan?
The RFP went in today's central register. There was a snafu between me and the assistant town manager, so we're a week behind where we originally would have been. Responses will be back in early August. It shouldn't affect the overall timeline we discussed.
Any other 40B comments?
I'll just give you a little bit of information that I put together for the Finance Committee at the acting chair's request. We're at 9.5%. We're like 20
Very
units
close.
shy. Now, that's all going to change in September when we get the 2020 initial numbers, so we'll probably go up. Currently, it says we have 4,037 dwellings as of 2010. I think the last time we did a mailing for stormwater, we were 4,800 tax bills. So that's probably 4,700 or so residences. And that across the affordable units that we have, they contribute 53 children to the school system.
How many affordable units, Adam?
389.
And they contribute how many to the school system?
53 children. Now, that doesn't include Monty Tech, but I think we have a total of 80 students at Monty Tech. So if we were to, I think it's a quick math, it's about 15% of the, so if we took 15% of 80, I mean, it's another maybe 5 kids. And then if you roll Emerald Place into that, it's another 38 students for another 240 units. So total, we have less than 100 students contributed from over 500 units, almost 600 units, actually over 600 units.
Now, you mentioned Emerald Place, but you didn't mention luxury condos? though?
Whalen Luxury is one of our affordable,
Okay, so that was
so
part
it's
of the
included in
53.
the 389.
Okay.
So that includes Pearl Brook, it includes a DMH house, It includes or two, I don't know, they're classified as to where they are. Includes Tri-Town and Whalen Luxury in the 389.
And at Tri-Town, does that include the
It
new
includes
building?
Baker Brook.
Okay. And how many residences do we have right now?
Well, I don't have the number off the top of my head. It was about 4,700 is my ballpark from the last mailing that we did.
Okay.
Per the census,
Yep.
which is what they use for the affordable housing count, it's 4,037.
Okay.
So we've gone up about 700, give or take, over the last decade.
Yep. And so that's theoretically 70 more units we
Correct,
will
yeah,
be looking for once the new numbers come out.
correct. You know, and the final question one of the finance committee members had was safe harbor. There's 4 ways you can get safe harbor. You hit 10%, which we know we're not at. 1.5% of the town's land area zoned for residential, commercial, industrial is set aside for affordable housing. In Lunenburg, that'd be 173 acres. We currently have 53 acres being used, and if you add in this development, that doesn't even get us to 73. And the third is the proposed development would result in 30% of 1% of total land area being developed in a comp permit. So that would be a 52 acre development. This one's only 19. And the last would be the housing production plan, meeting our annual goals. And when we did the housing production plan in late 2014, early 2015, it included things like Whalen Luxury and Tri-Town and Halls Hills. And Whalen Luxury came and I got really excited. Like, oh, we made some goals, and I emailed DHCD and I sent them all the paperwork and they said, yeah, but this doesn't count.
Why?
Because you approved it back in this has already been approved. And so those units were on and then they came off and you can't put them back on and count them as progress. So unless we're continually creating affordable housing, new affordable housing, not just building what's in the pipeline, those goals are just kind of pretend.
Now, the 1.5% of the land area is affordable. That's just setting it aside? That's creating like a zoning?
I think you would have to have it actively connected to some manner of affordable housing. I don't think that we could be like, oh, we're going to create affordable housing zoning and zone this and that. And I mean, that really is a double-edged sword too, because you go and do that and people are going to build it.
Yeah.
Can you send out a copy of the housing production plan?
Yeah. I believe it's on the website too.
I didn't see it, but I'll look for it.
You know what? It is up there. It might not have a forward-facing link. So let me look at it and see.
All right, thank you.
Is there any ability to convert existing housing to affordable?
Is there I mean, yeah, you just have to go through the process. I mean, with DHCD.
I'm just saying from a municipal standpoint, is there any,
I mean, yeah, you could. The issue would be, so what happens sometimes is people will say, oh, I bought a 3-family. I can get these credits to do this and I'm going to create affordable housing. And that's great, and maybe they go through the process. The tracking of that, especially in a rental, is more difficult. If it's a for sale unit, then it becomes deed restricted and there's a lot of restrictions in selling it. I saw one go up for sale recently in Acton, and I think it was Acton. It was a really nice little unit, and the price, but it had in bold everywhere about how you had to be, they could accept the offer, but they couldn't close until you were qualified by DHCD and you had income, and it was really specific about it because That's all within the deed. The rental, it's great. The tracking of it is incredibly difficult without some infrastructure for doing that. And I've had people, this is something that, my colleagues struggle with a lot. People put in an in-law apartment and they get it income qualified because they're doing it for their in-laws who are qualified, and then they pass on or whatever, and they continue counting the unit, and the owners have now rented it to someone else, and they're not even thinking. They don't even, and so it becomes just a paperwork.
Yeah. I've just worked on a couple of projects over the years where a private developer has gone through a grant process to rehabilitate big housing developments and made them affordable. Lunenburg, unfortunately, however you want to
We just
term
don't
it,
have
we- We don't, it's just like our zoning is limited. We have a shortage of housing in general, affordable
Yes.
or not.
I mean, if we had if we had any apartment units, we could theoretically, if someone wanted to do it in Emerald Place, if it weren't in good condition and someone was like, oh, I can get this for a steal because the current owner is just sick of managing it, and it would be wonderful if we found someone who wanted to buy it and worked with them to do that. And a lot of times, communities will do that if they have something where someone's going to come in and invest, and it's a local initiative project, so you go through the entire comp permit process, but in the sustainability section, there's a part where it says, does this have municipal support? They check yes, and the municipality almost becomes a co-applicant, and there's a lot of give and take between the town and the developer. That can happen on new construction too. You just really need to have an applicant who's in the mindset where they want to do that, and they're willing to give up some of the things they might want to get in order to have an easier process and work with the town to develop a project that's beneficial for both parties.
Any other 40B comments? We'll have plenty of time to discuss things further as a workshop, and
I don't know about
Take
plenty of
visits.
time, but
we'll have time. We'll leave it at that. All right. Moving on to our stormwater workshop and standard conditions. Have we gotten any feedback from the Conservation Commission in terms of?
he was out straight all day. I will check with him in the morning.
Okay.
So I see site plan and I see subdivisions.
Did I not send out the stormwater ones?
I don't see the stormwater one.
I don't think so.
My apologies.
Did you forward that stormwater permit that I saw that you did the site plan review, but I didn't see that you forwarded the stormwater conditions.
I thought that I had forwarded them both. Maybe I forwarded the same one twice.
That was just an idea of how to append.
Well, this is your Kingsborough?
That's Hudson, actually. Tingsboro is what I had asked him to forward for stormwater.
No, it looks like I didn't.
Yeah, so
My apologies. I'll send it right now, but I can also pull it up. Wouldn't make much sense to send it right back to you, would it, Paula?
no?
So the planning board database, is that the town of Hudson's
Yeah, well, that's what,
database?
yeah, and that was not, I didn't necessarily need for you guys to all look at that. That really was just for me to show Adam how, we can do something internally to make it easier.
Mm-hmm,
But this is just what I do.
yeah. No, it looks good. that would certainly make things easier going forward. I don't know what the process would be to try to work a system like that into the existing infrastructure. If that's something we need to go through town manager, IT.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to eventually go through all of that. We'd have to figure out what the cost was and
Well, there would be no cost. If I provided it, it would be no cost.
then that would come relatively easy if it were a donated service.
It would be a donated service. Because there can't be a cost for the town that I live in.
Let's see, I might even be able to print you all a copy.
Well, and then if we did have a database like that, I would imagine that, like Viewpoint Works, conservation could access that same thing and building commissioner so that everybody's looking at the same.
Yeah, I guess that would, yeah.
Yeah, it's a multi-relational database, and actually, many of the, Hudson, for example, they circulate a staff report via a different mechanism, and then each department has a modified view of the database so that they can enter their comments for review, similar to what we do now. But yeah, there's no question that if you put it on a server, that other people would be able to
Yeah.
access it. But I really just wanted to show how we could append this to Adam, how we could do something to easily append and to track the due dates. And the sample that you see, the decision of the Hudson Planning Board, this is a sample decision that they do from the database. If you remember I had a question about putting the minutes in, so I would like to go to a cleaner copy like this. I don't see any benefit to putting all the minutes discussion in the decision. As long as you reference the hearing dates, people can go back to the.
Yeah, all the minutes are
The
there.
minutes are
Yep.
there. So if you look at the administrative record, it says when it was published, when it was mailed, these were the hearing dates, these are the plans. So I'd like to, we can obviously tweak this, but I'd like to move to something. a little
And
cleaner.
this decision populates out of the database? So as the application is going in, you're entering
Yep, yep.
all of that data and then you can just, no,
Exactly.
that makes a lot of sense.
Keeps things consistent.
I'm a big, I don't like redundant typing. So that's how I started getting into this. is I only want to type something once and never have to type it again.
Yep.
So that's how I ended up getting into this. I started creating things for my own workflow here, and then it moved into conservation and building and dog licensing and all bunch of stuff.
Any comments on the standard general conditions for subdivisions? We can start with that one and then kind of work through.
What is SWPPP?
SWIP, stormwater pollution.
Oh, stormwater pollution protection plan.
Okay.
All right.
Prevention plan.
Prevention, that's it.
So 7 to 5, Monday through Saturday.
Yeah, we don't usually do those hours, do we? Don't we do something different on Saturdays?
I think we typically varied it depending on the area that it's in. Like if it's residential, we make it
8
more
o'clock, isn't it 8 o'clock?
typically.
So I think that has to be filled in per plan.
We talked about that last time, too, doing it that way.
Yeah, per project. I
Yeah.
think that makes the most sense.
What, the construction hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we put it up there as, this is what the condition reads, and leave the hours blank, people will get that they're going to have individualized hours.
Yep.
Okay.
Success.
So the planning board's erosion control plan as attached. Do we typically have an erosion control plan?
Usually it's within the plan set.
Well, I don't know if we need to call that out separately.
I think if we're attaching the plan set to the decision by reference, anything in there would automatically be included.
I think I would just take off the first sentence because, and reference the plans in the condition, right?
The first sentence of number 8.
Number 8, yeah.
What, I'm not looking at it, so I just wanted to get you these first.
And then all erosion control shall be in place and approved by the planning director before construction begins. I feel like
I think that,
conservation should be,
I would say, either conservation, unfortunately, I don't want to require the conservation administrator to manage projects that are outside of their normal workflow. So we could do it by our review engineer, which is what we currently do. I mean, the only thing, if you want to pass those down, here's the stormwater stuff. So when I got here, every aspect of a site plan approval would be reviewed and inspected by the town's engineer. And, I mean, would we prefer that everybody put 2 inches of pavement down in their parking lot? Yeah, but if that breaks, is it our maintenance issue? No. So what we generally do now is stormwater facilities and issues are inspected by our review engineer to ensure that they're installed properly to function the way they were designed, because that's the thing that we really want to work.
So should erosion control go under the stormwater permit and not the subdivision?
It should be under all.
It should be under all, okay.
I mean, why not include it everywhere?
Okay.
I mean, I don't think we're going to have a subdivision where they're not also getting a stormwater permit, but
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with a little bit of redundancy.
So it looks to me, did you take this from the ones I sent you for Hudson?
This is, I just sent it
Okay.
right out.
The subdivision one. Do we have our own that we currently
We
do?
don't have our own standard conditions.
Okay.
They were, so, we haven't done a subdivision since I've been here until now.
Okay.
And best I can tell, prior to me, it was, the way approvals were written was peculiar. It was,
At least.
I mean, there was findings for everything, which, in my experience, you only do findings in a special permit decision because you don't have to find anything in site plan approval. And so there was a findings document, there was a signature document, there was a directives document. It took me the longest time to figure out that directives were conditions. And each one was really long, and it included things like, I don't know, it included stuff that was on the plan. You know, stuff that wasn't necessarily a condition of approval, it was just the way it was designed. So it seemed, again, I mean, there's decisions for 15,000 square foot buildings that are 15 pages long. And I've never seen anything like that. So for number 8, yeah, I would take that first sentence out, and I would say approved by, I would just say the
review
planning
engineer.
board's agent. Because that could be me, it could be the engineer, it could be,
I would say it makes more sense to have the review engineer do it.
I
He would be
do,
the agent of the planning board, right?
yeah, he qualifies as an agent of the board. And that way you're not specifying it's the review engineer if Matt does it, because Matt's doing it for conservation at the same project. Or if we hire Tom Christopher to manage the stormwater like we did on the solars, or we're gonna do on Bright Farms. He's not an engineer, but he's an agent of the planning board, and that way it gives you the flexibility to determine project by project what best suits, your needs.
Okay.
Do we want weekly erosion control reports? I'm not sure we do.
I don't think that
I don't think we
you do. I would say, and I don't see the general conditions that we had talked about last time, but I think what we should say is, in the event of erosion control being breached, the town would be notified within 24 hours, or something to that effect. Let me look at what we have, because we've used that once or twice elsewhere. And the idea is essentially, when there's a problem, you tell us, and you tell us how you resolved it.
Well, typically, the erosion control plan that's in the subdivision package specifies inspections. And it oftentimes refers to a significant storm event.
Okay. I mean, I'm okay with making sure that it's in there. I'm also okay if you want to, again, redundantly put it in as the condition. I don't know, I mean, does that seem overkill?
I think I would,
To just
I would
call
like
out?
to have it in the condition. So whether it's erosion control is breached, or whether it's in a significant storm event, or whatever, however we want to do it, but I would like to put it in the condition.
Is there a problem with having it in both places, in that that's setting us up to, in the future, have conflicting standards when one changes and the other doesn't? That's my concern there. But,
Well, the only issue, and I mean, if it's in both places and one changes, as long as the condition is, well, I mean, even if the condition were less restrictive, the approved plan would require them to report anyway, so.
okay.
I don't know. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that, Matt?
No.
On redundancy or,
Redundancy is commonplace.
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So if we can go back to number 2, I don't know why we're asking them to provide a copy of the SWIP. We generate the SWIP, so we have.
No, we don't.
We don't.
So.
Oh, no,
The SWIP is the
plan,
document
okay.
that they submit to EPA
Oh, okay,
that
okay, gotcha,
qualifies them for the construction general permit.
okay.
So we can issue a stormwater, so what we've been doing is telling people, hey, you may as well just do a SWIP, because what we want is essentially the information you're giving EPA as part of the SWIP for stormwater permit.
Okay,
And then Brian Marchetti came in and said, hey, I just did a stormwater permit for you. I didn't do a SWIP, but here's all the information you asked for.
yeah, okay.
So, you at that point said, well, what about that? And I think this covers that.
Okay.
I think in a lot of instances, people are just gonna do the stormwater pollution prevention plan, but
Okay.
there's gonna be times when they don't.
Okay. So what are we putting 8 as? We're just leaving the all erosion control shall be in place and approved by the planning board's agent before construction begins?
Yeah, and let me find the language about the breach or the significant
And that
storm
would be
event.
another, that would be an additional condition.
I was just gonna put it.
Part of that one?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
gonna be like I was gonna take out the weekly erosion control.
And do the breach
have
or the,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
significant storm.
Because it's tied together for erosion control, so
Yeah.
it's easier to find as one.
Okay.
I do have a question and a comment about Matt Morrow being the conservation agent. He does typically go out and review our sites on a fairly regular basis currently, doesn't he?
When they're in conjunction with conservation, yes.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess the steepness of the slopes dictates whether you're gonna have erosion, and typically the erosion controls are put in areas where it will end up in a wetland. And
Correct.
And the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction for the Wetlands Protection Act is the resource area, the buffer zone, and anything that could come into those. So on a steep slope, then I think it would be more than appropriate for the conservation agent to be inspecting.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
So he would be acting as the planning board's agent in that case, correct?
Yeah.
And on a regular basis. So, as far as the reports, I guess that doesn't play into it, but he would be doing an inspection.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the weekly erosion control reports are supposed to be coming from the applicant themselves.
Which is silly.
Well, exactly. They should be doing their own weekly inspections and keeping weekly reports.
They should be keeping logs for themselves, and
Correct.
they should be viewable by our agent if required.
Correct.
Yes,
But there's no need for them to submit them to us.
exactly.
Yes.
That's some redundancy that we don't need.
Yes. It's paperwork for paperwork's sake. It's kind of like my predecessor had a weekly construction update. And I can't count the number of pieces of paper that said, we're gonna go out and lay pipe next week. We were out there this week digging a trench. I'm like, I can drive by and see that. I don't need it in writing for when you did it. It's only when there's an issue or when something's going in that needs to be inspected that we get it inspected.
What's the reasoning? I can kind of I think I get it, but what's the reasoning for requiring the road to be swept every Friday?
Well, before we jump to that,
Oh,
can we go to
sorry.
9? Why would the DPW make the final decision on how to proceed?
For a subdivision,
Yeah,
because the construction is roadway specific.
okay.
And
Okay,
it
so
would
that is
be,
appropriate then?
yes, it would be,
Okay.
because in theory, they could end up being responsible for the work that's being done.
Okay,
And so if it's construction related to roadway, it would be within their bailiwick.
okay. And 10, can I talk about 10 for a second?
Inspections,
Jump to
accordance
that.
with the Hudson rules and regulations.
We don't have do we have the ability to use a full-time inspection?
Of course we do.
We do, okay.
We have on a few of the projects.
Yeah, a full-time
Yeah,
inspector.
we've used an inspector.
I was gonna say, full-time inspector, I think, I'm not sure what Hudson's getting at, and I'm not sure what their development load is.
Yeah, and remember, this was back in 2012, so this is old.
Yeah, and that was lean times, but, we do this already.
So to use an inspector? to
Yeah,
be
I mean,
paid
what
by
we do is
the-
we call Jeff. And we
Okay,
say, when you get to this step, he needs to come out and inspect. When you get to this step, he needs to come out and inspect. So when they cut the road out, he needs to be there to see the bottom to make sure it's suitable material. When they lay the sub-base, he needs to see the sub-base to make sure it's suitable.
Okay.
When they install the drainage, he needs to be there to make sure it's installed correctly. When they lay the base course, he needs to be there to make sure that it was, the base course, we may substitute the DPW director for Jeff because he's going to be able to do that. We're generally going to use a consultant to do that work in order to not burden the DPW with additional work that crops up intermittently. The developer pays for it through their tri-party account. If it's something that the DPW director wishes to be involved in, I'm happy to give him that opportunity.
so what would you recommend 10 read as?
Inspection shall be in accordance with the town of Lunenburg rules and regulations. Yeah, which allows the use of I would cross out full-time and just say inspector to be paid by the developer.
I don't know what that second sentence means. At this time, the DPW will handle inspections on their own schedule. What does that mean?
I would honestly just take the second two sentences out.
Okay, all right, so that's just, all right. All right, now on to Matt's question.
So that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, street sweeping is part of the ongoing maintenance.
Yeah.
There's a construction, maintenance, operation and maintenance, and then there's a long-term operation and maintenance. So I think that should read once the first house is occupied. Well, no, before the first house is occupied, they should be doing the construction, maintenance, and operation and maintenance.
I think what they're calling out there is a
Dust
lot of
control.
times,
Dust
it's
control.
dust
When-
control,
once people are
cleanliness,
I was wondering.
all
Dust
that
control.
stuff.
That's,
And-
so if you look at
I think once,
the,
yeah.
if you look at the earth removal permits, I know that was one of the things. is
The
If it was
water.
near a residential area, it was watering to prevent dust. So I think that's a dust concern because people are living there.
Okay, in the construction.
Yeah, and I think usually, one might look at this and think, oh, it's to keep sediment out of the storm drains, but normally they're going to have silt sacks in those, and they're going to have to empty them when they get full. And prior to the board releasing the bond at the final inspection, I would expect that you would require that the entire system be cleaned, just to make sure there's no sediment in it.
Well, it's quality of life, then Friday makes sense, because then that's setting up the new homeowner to not have,
Dust
Dusty
everywhere on the
weekend.
weekend.
yeah.
So I've actually seen sites that, under construction, they'll put down binder and they'll just put a plate over manholes. And then they'll come back and dig them up and set the frame. Now, that's all well and good for manholes, but not for catch basins.
No,
The silt sacks often don't get maintained.
that's,
It's just part of the,
that's part of the game.
and then it ends up going along the gutter downhill, which typically comes to a road.
I mean, that, I think, is all within the purview of stormwater. I mean, it could be in these as well. Like I said, I'm not opposed to redundancy.
Okay, no, I agree, because this is specifically looking, and like you said, I was initially thinking about the sediment in the drainage, but it probably is for the living conditions, to reduce the dust. Every Friday afternoon.
But then we allow them to work on Saturday and Sunday,
Well, not Sundays, but,
Saturday.
yeah.
I mean, I think, how do you parse them working on Saturday pre and post occupancy of a housing unit? Honestly, by the time someone's living there, they're probably not doing subdivision work on the weekends. If anything, they're doing house construction, lawn construction. You're not getting an occupancy permit on an unpaved road, and you're not getting a paving contractor out there on a weekend without paying through the nose.
Wait a minute, why wouldn't you get an occupancy permit on an unpaved road?
On a subdivision,
Yeah.
I would expect that most developers aren't going to cash in their,
Now, I would beg to differ with you on that. My son-in-law builds houses, and he's working in a subdivision now in Littleton. Most of the houses are occupied, but there's a whole section that he's still building.
and the whole road is unpaved.
No, they'll put down binder.
The portion of the roads are paved, but not all of the roads are paved.
And most of the occupied homes are on the paved portions.
Yes, that's true.
So, like I said, not that you won't, but oftentimes, communities will require binder to be down prior to occupancy, as a condition of frontage.
So do we want to put that as one of our conditions?
I think that's, well, it's not spelled out in 13 specifically, but it says lots graded in accordance with the plans.
Yeah, I mean,
So, my interpretation is if it's graded in accordance with the approved plan is pavement,
With
Yeah.
pavement.
Yeah.
so,
Pavement isn't grading, though.
correct.
Yeah, you're right, Matt, that's graded in accordance.
And I would think they'd want to have something established as far as grass or ground cover. I don't think a homeowner's going to want to move into a dirt pile. But
But that's outside of the
And I mean,
subdivision.
I don't think there's any harm in occupancy of an unpaved road, but most developers aren't going to come and put a cash bond or a subdivision bond in place until they've done the more expensive portions of it, which is everything up to binder, because then they're paying less on the bond or they're putting less money in a passbook. It's easier and more beneficial for them to have the 24 feet of pavement and the associated utilities underneath it start building the houses, and after they've got all the heavy equipment done, then start to put in sidewalks and curbs, and then start to do the finishing up of the road once they've finished all of the heavy work on the lots. That's not how everybody's gonna do it, and obviously, there's gonna be exceptions to it, but that's the general process that I've seen.
All right, so do we want to leave 11 the way it is? Or eliminate it, or what do people say?
I think we could leave it in there and then we can always eliminate it.
Okay.
Or we can work with the DPW director to figure out what he thinks is a reasonable bar for waiving that every Friday.
Yeah.
It establishes just a good message that we're expecting you to take quality of life for your new residents into account while.
While you're working on the rest of your
Yeah.
project, yeah.
And I mean, for something like Butterfly Lane, it's gonna be much less of an issue because it's a much smaller road, but Arrow Estates is, miles and miles of road that, is going to, for years and years, create
Dust.
dust or mud or whatever being tracked over
Tracked over the road,
the
yeah.
initial sections of it that are paved and people are living in through all of the building that goes along with it.
Yep.
And isn't the roadway shall be swept rather than will be swept?
Okay, I have a point on this. I just found this out because of another role that I play. The Supreme Court has ruled that shall does not mean must legally. So, use the word must if you want it to say must. And actually, they are in the process of changing all of their legal documents. The federal government is in the process of changing the word shall to must. And I only found this because we've been challenged on the word shall. So, just FYI. It should say must, not shall.
What about will?
We must do something about the word shall.
Yes, we must.
Does that mean we now have to go through all of our bylaws and change everything
It
that
should
says
be
shall to
must.
must?
what it
It
sounds
should
like,
be
yeah.
must.
I know what I'm putting on our next warrant.
It should be must.
That'll be a fun one to stand up and explain.
It should be must.
That
12,
blows
I
my
think,
mind.
Isn't that crazy?
That,
It goes contrary to every dictionary definition that you read.
and every, intro to law course and everything, hey, you know what shall means?
If you go, actually, it's one of the legal websites, because I didn't believe it either, and then one of the legal websites talks about the conundrum about the word shall, and that legally, all documents need to be changed to must. So I can forward it to you.
It goes
Adam,
against
but-
every bylaw writing bone in my body.
Me too, me too, me too,
Made me physically ill when you said that.
me too.
This is collusion with the lawyers and the federal government to
At
spend our
least
money
with
uselessly.
code, now you can search,
True.
do a word search.
I think it's probably a conspiracy by the people who built the Control F function.
Yeah. So are we good with the subdivision?
I was gonna say 12
General
absolutely
condition.
should stay.
Yeah.
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 And how do we feel about 13? If it's truly a lot grading plan and not necessarily a,
We could add pavement.
well, this is saying you can't have a building permit.
No, this is good, because I ran into this issue in a previous community. We
Okay.
had a shady developer who bought a subdivision from a shadier developer. I mean, this was like, we're talking like Inception level shady developers here. And he came in and he started messing with all the grading of the lots after the roads were in, and was pulling building permits and causing runoff issues.
Oh, okay.
So the idea of this is you design the subdivision and you're like, woohoo, subdivision, you got the road, you got it all graded a certain way so the water follows your stormwater plan. And then you sell a lot to someone, or you sell the whole thing to someone to build houses, and they're like, oh, well, I don't want to build this house, I want to build this other house, and they want me to do this, that, and the other thing, and you change the way one lot is shaped, elevation or topography wise, and it changes the whole stormwater flow. And then someone else changes their lot, and all of a sudden, it's a Charlie Foxtrot, and none of the stormwater's going where it was supposed to.
Okay, so we leave 13 alone.
So moving on to the general conditions for site plan approval,
Yes.
not review.
So on number 2, we're gonna just leave blanks for the hours of construction.
Well, and again, I'd like to go back to the ones that we already had and talked about a little bit.
So you wanna revise number 2 on both of these?
I mean, the subdivision is fine, however,
He means the ones
Well,
that
we don't
we
have a
looked at
noise
before.
bylaw,
Oh,
so
okay.
that
we definitely don't have that.
we can
Are you sure we
remove
don't?
that.
I thought that was one of the contentions about the unifier.
Well, no, they tried to place a noise bylaw in the time after that, but it was such a disaster at town meeting that it didn't pass.
Okay, so what is it, the thing that police enforce?
That is standard criminal statute, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
There's standard quiet hours.
Disturbing
Disturbing the peace,
that's
yeah.
what they enforce.
So,
And then the last line, work on Sundays and holidays, that wouldn't be approved by the chief of police.
yeah, I mean, I would go with, and again, I'm happy to talk about anything that's on here, but, like, I think what we have works so far.
Do you have a copy of what we have?
Oh, you know what, I can print now.
That would be helpful.
Lovely.
Then we can compare.
So 3 is not on there, so I would be all for us using that. That's telling me. Number 4, I think is a great condition because we already signed the plans and tell them to keep them there.
On number 6, I think we make it the same as number 8 that we just talked about. It's the same condition.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, 3 and 4, I think, are good ones. I think 5 is in the ones I've already given you.
So number 2 on this, what does substantial conformance mean? What do we consider substantial?
I mean, there's going to be things that come up when you're doing work that are maybe not exactly what was shown. Maybe the catch basin is 2 or 3 feet in one direction or the other, and the grades still run to it.
So I guess I would like to change the way that's worded. And I mean, if, say the catch basin isn't built the way, they have to make a change. Do they notify you of that? Do they notify the DPW director of that?
They submit an as-built at the end of the project and is required per the site plan and special permit rules and regulations. And that is reviewed by Jeff, including a site inspection.
But isn't that a little late? I mean, I guess my point is, you know, if substantial conformance could be, that's open to interpretation to me.
Of course it is.
Well, in the construction process, though, there's inspections along the
there
way.
is. Especially
So-
for stuff like stormwater. I mean, I picked catch basin because that is one thing that we do.
Because some of the work that's being inspected is gonna get buried, so they'll dig out to subgrade, and then they'll put their base material down before they put binder and so on. I mean, this is standard for,
So why don't we just say the project shall be completed in conformance with the, I would say, final approved plans and the other documents submitted to the planning office and to the board unless otherwise specified herein. Any deviation from the same shall require review by and approval of the board and/or its agent. And Adam would be acting as the agent.
I almost got to act tonight.
almost.
So number 5 actually allows, number 5 on both, look at that, is the same.
Yeah? And number 6, we're changing to number 8 of the subdivision.
Yes.
So this doesn't, ours doesn't have number 7.
It does not, but, I mean, that's certainly one that can be added.
So add number 7. Now let's go back to the,
Number 12 is going to be changed to what we had added to the 2 projects that you just signed the approvals for. So it'll read the same as those.
Which we clarified that it should be, the maintenance shall be completed.
Per the
Per the
operation and
O&M.
maintenance plan.
Yeah, not annually.
Completed stormwater maintenance reports detailing shall perform the previous 12 months shall be provided to the board annually by July 1st.
so this is for both special permit and stormwater, right?
I mean, no, it doesn't have, and we talked about having different ones for stormwater.
Yeah, I think it should be different.
I think that I think everything in here and whatever we add from this can be the base conditions for site plan and special permit, and then you can have an additional set of conditions that you add to the end of it and call those the stormwater conditions.
Yeah, because I think some of these, the Tingsboro ones, if you look at F conditions, So 1, 2, and 3 are pretty, well, number 2 is normal. Number 4 is basically just saying that they have to provide a copy of this to all the contractors. That doesn't seem like a bad idea.
No, I think that's a good one.
Pre-construction meeting, I think that's definitely a good one. I like the stormwater infrastructure shall be installed at the beginning of site work and shall be in place and operational prior to issuance of a building permit. I think
I think that works.
and I like the stabilization in number 7,
Okay.
the roaming and seating and the stabilization. The applicant's own, number 8, the applicant's owners and their successors in the sign shall maintain all culverts, blah, blah, blah. I think that's important.
Okay. I think 9 is important as well.
Yeah, because I absolutely.
Because I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions is, well, they put a system in, how come I'm still flooding, is my favorite. So I flooded for 20 years, and then they built that, and I'm still flooding. Why didn't they fix it?
Versus I wasn't flooded 20 years ago.
What's that?
Excuse me.
Inside voice getting out?
Oops.
Along the lines of the stormwater stuff being installed at the beginning of site work, what about screening for site plan approvals? I just know in the past, screening has been an issue for abutters.
Yeah, I think
Depending on the
that is
project,
probably a
that's difficult.
project specific, that would be a special condition, because I think to blanket put that down, you work with plants, you know that they can be fickle, and, if you put a bunch of screening in and, you're working right up to that general area, it can have a significant impact on them.
Yeah.
And in some projects, it may be completely feasible and necessary, and others it may be less necessary. I just hate to have it as a standard condition and then have it be something where we're dealing with having to go back and constantly have someone replant something that's dying throughout the construction period.
I just know, like up at Arrow Estates, there were a couple of butters that were really concerned about because of their proximity to.
Well, and that would be
the development.
subdivision. And, one would hope that after the majority of the road construction were done, they could get that in and done, but I think that would probably need to be more case by case. If you want to make it standard, we can. I think it falls into the case by case for me. But I'm not the decision maker.
I don't know. I see your point with a lot of it, but I also see and respect the position that the abutters are in, because for them, a lot of times the construction is more detrimental than the finished product, in terms of dust and noise and so on. They'd rather the fence go up before all the excavation starts.
And I think it depends what screening is.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
if the
Different
screening is
than a live
vegetation,
screen.
if the
Yep.
screening is vegetation, they might put in the vegetation, but it's not going to really screen until it grows.
Grows out, and if you have a subdivision that takes 3 years to develop, and you planted the shrubs on day 1 versus 3 years down the road, I don't know. It's just something to be aware
I
of.
think that's the reason I lean towards project specific, because if no abutter shows up, then
But why don't we make it one of our standard conditions, and then if it doesn't apply, we can take it off?
Just cross it out.
That way we won't forget it. Right?
No, that makes sense, I hear
Because if
that.
it doesn't apply to the project, we just take it out.
Well, and if we're trying to approve things, it's a lot easier to just cross things off than
Yeah.
go
then
back
to-
and
then to
re-get
try to
it.
figure out, oh, we forgot that one.
yeah,
What-
standard conditions.
Does it
minus-
send the right message if we have a standard condition that might routinely get crossed off, that developers might think that all of our standard conditions are more malleable than we mean them to be? I think the answer is it's fine, but I just want to put that out there as a,
you could have standard conditions and, we could develop a list of,
Site-specific conditions.
of project-specific conditions that are standard project-specific conditions that you might see selected from.
Yeah.
I like that.
And
I like that a
way,
lot.
people are aware that this is something that
We
the
may-
planning board has and will impose, but it, everything north of 12 is definitely going to be on every project. Everything in this portion is something that will depend on the project, and then we also reserve the right to do special conditions based on things that come up.
All right, what's the take on number 10 on the stormwater?
I think that's the same as number 2 on the ones that I gave you guys.
I'm confused about which one's number 2.
So, standard site plan, special permit, and stormwater conditions, number 2, the one we just took substantial conformance out of and made it in conformance.
Well, see, and I guess I'm seeing it more as, the stormwater, I like the way number 10 is worded more than number 2, if it's stormwater specific.
I mean, again, not necessarily, I don't know what a construction period pollution prevention and erosion and sedimentation control plan is. I'm assuming that that's something specific to Tingsboro
Okay.
that they call out. It's not a terminology I've ever heard.
Okay.
I can
So
piece
what if we
together
just-
what
What
it
if
is.
we make a combination of number 10 and number 2 and come back with something different?
Or if we just took out construction, pollution, prevention, erosion, sedimentation, blah, and say the stormwater pollution prevention plan, because all of our stormwater permits are gonna
Yeah.
require that, because we're at 40,000, they have a tiered system where they're catching people at 10 and
Yeah.
20 and 40.
Yep.
With the SWIP and the general permit,
Yep. Yeah, so just, I like that wording, just kind of reword number 10.
so I mean, I'm really just striking construction to applicable and leaving the rest of it, and then calling out the stormwater standard, taking 8 and whatever it ends up being in our list.
Okay. And I would change number 11 to saying, no stormwater runoff may be discharged to the post-construction stormwater BMPs unless and until the planning board review engineer has reviewed the installation. Would it be the planning board review engineer, or would it be DPW, Adam?
It'd probably be the review engineer.
Okay.
On number 7, I think we should specify like 6 inches of loam, so we don't leave it saying with sufficient topsoil. That's kind of a ambiguous
All right, so you want us to be 6 inches of topsoil?
4 or 6.
I mean-
As long as there's a number in there, I mean,
Well, that's a specification on the plan, I think, right? So they have to be in conformance with the plans.
I don't know that we see it very often in plans, though.
I put it on plans all the time.
Okay.
I was gonna say, when there's significant loam and seed, it's usually called out.
There's usually a detail for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you're worried about it, we can start to be more specific about it in the plan review, but I think it's, I know Jeff has commented on it a couple of times on not having enough
Okay.
soil
So
called
what if
out.
we put with blank inches of topsoil, and then we'll put it in based on the plan?
We could. I mean, for certain sites, like, these solar projects that are clearing wooded sites, they're not gonna have 4 inches of loam there
Right.
unless it was a hayfield or something at some point. So it might be good to have a little
Yeah.
flexibility there.
I actually think one of the solar sites was where it got called out.
Okay.
I like number 12. And 13.
All construction period BMP.
And if it was converted, it has to be, the construction has to be properly cleaned or prepared.
I'm actually really curious reading through this.
It seems to conflict with,
No,
The
it just
number
reading
7
through
there.
this, it sounds like they issue. I'll have to go read through their bylaw, but it looks as if they might issue, administrative permits and not, so and it looks real quick, looking at their application, like they have a 5 and 20,000 square foot threshold. So they may be issuing, their agent may be issuing administrative permits for those. And just reading through this, it sounds like these are not things that are discussed at a meeting, that they're just telling you, you have to do these things.
I think I think what this is just, I understand what you're saying. I think this is just saying that if it's going to be, a construction BMP is going to be changed to a post-construction, that it has to be cleaned and properly cleaned and prepared. That's all it's saying.
Yeah. And I'm not opposed to putting it in there, just that I would say this might be,
It might be site-specific, it might be one of
yes,
those
yeah, it might
site-specific
not
ones.
be a
Standard.
standard,
Yeah.
because some places aren't going to have construction BMPs,
Yeah,
or they're not going
so it
to,
goes into that other list.
yeah. I think I might call them secondary conditions. Have standard and then secondary.
I like that
And
term.
then you can choose from your list of secondary, and maybe it's all of them, maybe it's none of them.
So they do a certificate of compliance, and honestly, I'm confused about whether the certificate of compliance is, because the permitting authority in Tingsboro is the Conservation Commission. So I'm not sure when they're talking about certificate of compliance, if it's associated with notice of intent certificate of compliance, or if it's a separate certificate of compliance.
It's
for
probably
stormwater.
separate, because again, reading through this, it looks as though they're issuing administrative permits.
Well, as I'm developing this database, I'll let you know.
So, with that, it seems that almost every house that gets built is probably requiring some manner of stormwater permitting.
Okay.
And for a house, it's probably pretty low-key, but they have to do certain things. And then as you get to a medium size, that's a little bit more. And then once you break 40, it's probably a public hearing.
So I don't know that I would include 16, because we see the O&M plan long before the end of it. Because this is saying
yeah.
they have to get the O&M after, and that doesn't make any sense
So we're
to me.
including 13. We jumped from 12 to 16, so I just want to be sure
sorry.
I'm on the same page.
So
13, we would include,
Yeah.
because that makes sense.
Yeah,
Post-construction. Do we want to include 14, or is the as-built enough?
I think the as-built is enough, right?
Okay. Any vegetation? I think that's reasonable for 15, so 16.
Didn't we have something and something else that made more sense to me? Didn't you have a condition in one that you proposed that made more sense, Adam, than that?
I think it's number 12 on the ones that I handed you tonight in
Yes,
its newest form.
yes. number
So
12.
I think 16 is a bit much.
I don't think we need 17, we've already said that.
Mm-hmm.
No, there was something about, we read something about maintaining until approved.
Erosion control measures should be maintained.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's covered in the SWIP anyway. And
No, but it's number 18, it's about responsibility of maintaining. Didn't we just read one like that?
Oh,
Where do we read that? About who's responsible for stormwater?
Eight.
8?
the Hudson ones.
Yeah, I see that.
Where is it?
8 on this
On
thing.
this same document?
Yep, so 8, right there.
so many documents. Yes.
I thought there was something about unless it's approved by the town. Until it's approved by the town.
But we would never be taking over these because these are all going to be on private property.
Okay, all right.
And I don't think that, I mean, what other party is going to accept responsibility other than the landowner?
Okay, all right, so it's 8. And 19 is 8, right?
19 is R12, kind of.
No, I think it's the 8 in the R12. Yes, but it's a combination of 8 and 12.
So, I mean.
So we don't need it.
Yeah. I think 20 is fine.
Illicit discharges are prohibited, I like that one.
It said we have to say it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we have a bylaw for it.
Yeah, but let's just leave it.
Yes.
No, I agree.
I think I would add, as defined by 310 CMR 110 and Chapter 204, the Code of Lunenburg.
Okay.
Now, would be washing down your concrete trucks into the catch basin be an illicit discharge?
Yeah, what?
Of course it would, I'm just.
Okay.
I'm like, what?
Now, if you went down the street and just washed them out in the street, that wouldn't be, that would just be stormwater.
Right.
The stormwater, I think that means the approved stormwater management system shall not be changed without the prior written approval of the issuing authority. Just take out, but I think it's implied, but. And 23 isn't applicable because we're not doing credits.
Yeah.
So we're keeping 22 with modification?
Yeah.
What are we modifying?
I would just say, the approved stormwater management system shall not be changed without the prior written approval of the issuing.
The system
Must not
approved
be
in the order of
changed.
conditions.
Must not be, must not be.
Yeah,
Thank
must
you.
not.
Must not be,
But it already says system approved in the order of conditions.
but we don't issue an order of conditions, that's
Oh,
conservation.
there you go, okay. So that stormwater management system approved within the
The
stormwater
approved stormwater management system.
process approved in the order of conditions.
I think 24 would be a secondary.
And I don't know if we're gonna do a certificate of compliance or a certificate of release or whatever. I'm not sure 25 is required.
No, I would say not.
So in 23, do we have a low-impact site design credit?
No.
No.
She said that one should go.
Oh, 23 does.
23 does.
So that pretty much wraps up most of the general conditions.
Yeah, so how about, we put this on the first meeting in August, and what I'll do is I'll compile a document for each and distribute it, and then, at that meeting, you guys can read through them, make sure I didn't miss anything. You can think about if you want to add anything else between now and then, either for standard or as secondary. You know, if something pops in your head, and then we can approve them, modify them, however you want to do it that evening.
Sounds good.
Just because I know I'm not going to turn these around for the next meeting.
Yep.
I'd rather focus on the questions about
On view, yep. All right, director's items, Economic Development Committee.
So, we had a resignation, and we need someone to show up and talk business.
Is anybody interested in filling in that role? I know, Mr. Brenner, you expressed some interest.
Interest might be a slightly strong word.
Willingness, maybe.
Very interested.
So no, I'm actually very interested, but only slightly willing. Because it sounds great and fascinating, but there's only so many hours in a day. But Mrs. Brenner gave her lovingly begrudging approval.
Oh, I thought you were going to say no.
It involved, involved the phrase, this is actually really important.
It is.
And her saying, okay.
I nominate Matthew Brenner to be the new appointment from the planning board for the Economic Development Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Matt.
And
You're welcome.
aye for myself, thank you.
Yes.
All right, moving on to meeting schedule. All board meetings are held at Town Hall, 6:30 PM. Our next meeting is July 26th. And then we have August 9th and August 23rd. Any ongoing items?
No, not that we haven't talked about.
I have a question on the upcoming meeting schedule, actually. I'm just thinking ahead that I am likely not, I would have to attend the August 9th meeting remote.
Okay.
And I'm just putting that out there in case a bunch of us were like, oh, we'd all have to attend that meeting remote, and then all of a sudden, quorum doesn't exist.
Yeah, as long as 3 of you are here, we should be okay.
Yep. And I think I am going to be out of town for the July 26th meeting.
And I'm going to be remote.
Okay.
So are the three of you
So
going
it
to
is
be
paramount,
here?
it's paramount that us three are here.
Yes. I can be here without an anticipated issue then.
Participation on remote participation in terms of, as long as we have our 3-person quorum here.
Yeah, both
I
of you
may,
can participate
okay,
remotely.
I may be able to call in.
I may be able to, I'm going to see.
Remotely,
depending
I'm
on
not
whether
sure
they
what
do
the-
site visit.
So we're gonna have 2 public hearings, nothing special permit, so everything is gonna be able to be made up by the Mullen Rule and 3.
Well, but if they're here remotely,
Oh, right, right.
that
right.
counts.
But they were saying they may be here
I was
remotely.
gonna say, and if they're not, then we could either do the Mullen Rule or you two can just not participate and the other 3 can vote.
No, this is the 110 Pleasant, so that means we can't vote. That got moved to July 26th, right?
Correct.
So the 101 Pleasant.
I mean,
So-
you can do the Mullen Rule if you're not able to participate.
But you can only do
remotely.
once, one
Oh,
meeting,
one
right?
per hearing. You can only miss 1 meeting per,
Per permit request.
correct.
Okay. All right, so I'm supposed to be on vacation the 26th to the 29th, but that's when apparently all the O'Brien stuff is happening. So you'll let me know if they change the date?
Yes. And like I said, it most likely be the 29th, but I don't have confirmation of that yet.
I was going to mention that I was planning on attending the site walk whenever it is as well.
Okay. And, I will say it is the state who has asked to move it. It doesn't have anything to do with Mr. O'Brien, so it's not a delay and confusion tactic.
Yeah.
It's just government at work.
If the site walk is the 29th, I'll be there. If it's the 28th, I will not.
Okay.
I'm not coming back every day of vacation.
So the O'Brien, the comp permit site visit is going to be the 27th or the 28th?
It's scheduled for the 28th right now,
Okay.
which is a Wednesday.
But they might move it to the 29th.
My understanding is that the state may have been asking to move it to the 29th. That has not been confirmed.
And how about the times? Are they the same?
I believe it'll still be at 1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock.
Nice convenient
And
time.
then the workshop is on the 27th,
7:27?
Potentially.
potentially.
Potentially, so what, at what, so we
That
don't
would
have,
be an evening thing. I would
in the
think.
evening, okay.
So that's a busy week.
Of course
Oh,
it
I'm
is.
gonna,
I'm not supposed to be here.
if that workshop gets set up on the 27th, can we have remote be a possibility for that? Because that's something I would love to view.
too.
That would be out of my control. I
Fair.
can certainly ask about it.
Can you ask about
Yeah.
that? Because I'd like to do it
I
remotely
mean,
as well.
it needs to get set up before I can
Yeah.
ask about that, but
Yeah, that's something I would like to, I mean, it's going to be nice being on vacation and planning board every night, but aside from that,
Are you on vacation too?
that week, yeah.
Yeah, so am I. Well, wait a minute, are you gonna
No,
be here for the
no,
meeting on the
ignore
26th?
me completely, by the way. I'm confusing, so I'm seeing my calendar and everything's all pink and colored, and I realize, no, that's oldest son away at sleepaway camp, not,
Not you.
so that's
Not
still
me.
vacation.
Okay.
I mean,
So you won't be at sleepaway camp.
I will not be at sleepaway camp that week.
Okay.
He will be at his first, however, so power to him.
So you may be at sleepaway camp sooner than you realize.
If you could see about remote participation.
I'll do what I can.
That would be great.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's no longer as relevant for me because I will be here.
It is for me.
Yes.
All right. Any other scheduling things to work out? I think
I
we're
think I've got
okay.
enough schedulings to figure out in the next couple of days.
Do we have any members of the public participating on Zoom
Oh,
this evening?
we do have one in the waiting room. Lost that.
How long were they in the waiting room?
Any board comment? So,
Last four, 7248. Do you have a public comment?
I do.
go ahead.
I do. This is Dave Rogers, 82 Highland Street. I have the following comment, my opinion, that this 40B proposal that we're discussing is clearly an effort to circumvent the current organization/authority of a separate and distinct entity outside the town of Lunenburg's burden. Having said that, I think we have to keep focused on what it is that is at stake. And I'm concerned that there is no organization that will allow the rank and file citizens to participate, and wondered if the 27th workshop will be something that will enable the folks in public to sound off on and comment.
That I don't know. And just to be clear, we have not received a comp permit filing, and if site eligibility were issued, that filing would still need to be done, and there would still be all of the public hearings through the zoning board.
Okay,
And those would be open to the public for rank and file comment as well.
okay. Has that clearly been discussed and a decision has been made that, in fact, the zoning board of appeals will act on this issue?
Well, that's the way that 40B works. The zoning board of appeals is appointed as the permitting granting authority for a comprehensive permit. What we're in now is the site eligibility stage. And in order to file a comprehensive permit, one needs to obtain site eligibility from a subsidizing agency through the state. And in this instance, Mass Housing is that subsidizing agency. And it, as part of their process, once they receive the site eligibility application, the community or municipality in which the proposed site is located has the opportunity to comment. The public is also allowed to comment, both as members of boards and commissions, but as individual citizens. Let me find out, I believe you can submit comments to the town manager's office. If you want to give me a call on Thursday, the 22nd, Dave, I'll have that information for you.
Okay. And what specifically is the role of the zoning board of appeals? What's the criteria that they are going to be judged upon?
Their comprehensive permit rules and regulations, as well as 760 CMR 56, I think is the regulations.
Okay, I
760 CMR 56.
I've lived in the town for 48 years, and I've never once heard of any similar situation dealing with the zoning board of appeals. So there's strict rules and regulations and criteria that any person that wants relief from the zoning board of appeals must meet, but I'm not aware of what this would do, and it just blows my mind, because it's got nothing to do with the town of Lunenburg as it relates to the water district, but yet an entity of the town of Lunenburg is responsible for acting and ruling on it. So this to me just doesn't make any sense.
And I think your sentiments are echoed by members of this board as well as other folks that I've spoken to.
All right, so in so many of the procedural steps in our town government, our relief is to go to Superior Court. I'm at a loss for words to how we can be put into this predicament, and wondered how we will, as a community, how we will respond, and hope that there is a group that's going to be responsible for input, receiving input, so that it can be distributed to those in Boston who seem to have control of this thing, and I just get the sense of it's a fait accompli, which really upsets me. But so if somehow we as a community could come together and at least understand how we get in touch with the powers to be, and what we can do, and what we have to do, so that our voice can be heard, that I think will go a long way in initially getting what I want done, the people the opportunity to speak. The other question I have is that, has there been a agenda put together for this site walk, and what is the process? Who's in charge? What's the program? What are the key points? What is the makeup of this meeting, and what is it that they, whoever they are, would hope to accomplish on this? And I think something was mentioned about the state being there as well. So I'm confused as to who's in charge, what the agenda is, what the key points are, and what the process will be for that site walk. And I'm not sure that anybody knows that right now.
I don't know what the agenda is. I'm not sure who will be there, any member of any board or committee, and I believe the public is also invited, but Mass Housing, who is a state agency, will be there, and they are the ones who are organizing the site walk. I would, like I said, I'll be out of the office from Thursday to Thursday, but if you want to call me on the 22nd, I can try and get you some of the answers to these questions.
Okay, well, I certainly am not looking just for myself, but I think that the populace in general should know this. So anyway, taking too much of your time, and thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Bye-bye.
Chairman?
Yes.
As a follow-up to that, I'm glad to hear that public input is an option in this situation. I would like to confirm that, and if public comment is an option, I think this application has been circulated to boards and commissions, but I don't know that it's available or people are aware that it's out there. So I think it's important that if people can comment on it, that they be made aware that this application is here and how they can comment and who they would forward their comments to. And additionally, if they are able to attend the site visit, I think that should be publicized as well. So it's important that we get this information out to the community if in fact they are able to comment on it at this stage. So if you could check into that as soon as you can, and ask the town manager, I would assume it would be the town manager, to post it on the website or on the, community page or whatever, so that people are aware of it.
Yep. I know we did get a link to their application.
Yeah,
And so I think
I think
that.
that's probably how it would get posted, is by the link.
But I didn't know if it was available to the public or just to boards and commissions.
I
That was
don't
my
know that it's
question.
been posted publicly, but it's,
But I guess my question is Mass Housing just looking for comments from the municipality, or are they accepting comments from the general public?
my understanding is that anybody can comment, but I'll confirm that.
If you can confirm that, because I have several people that would like to comment, but I didn't circulate that link because I didn't know if they could.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, and I'm just looking now to see, because we got that link, and I thought that,
Probably June 24th or 25th.
yeah, just seeing where that,
It goes to a file share site.
yeah, it goes to a link, and
Yeah.
I didn't share that because I don't know that it's public information right now.
but
Well, it's
Once it-
public,
once
well,
it hits our box,
well,
it's
it is
public
public
information.
information, but I guess I didn't know if it was, if public could comment on it to Mass Housing.
I'll confirm that for you.
Okay, great.
and it would be good to get that link posted on all the town websites if we can make that.
And if people can go to the site visit,
Yep. And I'm not sure with the workshop that we've got coming up on that project, I'm sure town council's gonna have all of his information, but if we could record that and make that available, because
Yeah, again,
I-
that's going to be outside of my,
Yeah. I just feel like there's a lot of unanswered questions for people, and this particular project has many layers to it.
I would
And
also
so-
expect that workshop will be a more process-oriented discussion on how a comp permit will work and flow, maybe informed by some of the information that we have here, and probably won't delve into project specifics.
you don't think it will delve into project
I
description?
would expect that it
Specifics.
probably wouldn't.
Because if it isn't, then I don't know that I'll come back.
Because we
to
don't
that.
have, I mean, we don't have project specifics at this time. We have,
But is the workshop about the 40B process, or is it about compiling our comments on this particular 40B?
I mean,
I guess that it's
they're-
two different workshops.
but they're part and parcel of the same thing.
No, not necessarily. I don't agree. I mean, The 40B process, I'm pretty familiar with. I want to understand what information from the town of Lunenburg can be crafted in such a way to address this application. And if that's what the focus is going to be, you know, understanding what information will address site eligibility, then I'm very interested in coming. If it's just the 40B process, I'm probably going to stay on vacation.
Well, I might suggest that if that's the kind of question that you have,
I'm going to contact the town manager, I think.
perhaps you take advantage of town council office hours,
Do you know when those are?
July 21st, from 12 to 4.
July 21st, 12
So-
to 4.
We're not, are we talking about the site visit, or are we talking about the?
The workshop.
The workshop. So the joint workshop, I would expect, would be focused on this packet of material that we
That's
all
what I-
get.
And maybe it will be.
I would expect that it would be.
That's what I thought. But if it's just about the 40B process, then that's...
I can
have-
sign you up right now for time with council.
Could you please?
For what's 1 to 120, 120 to
What's that?
140.
What day of the week is
The
it?
Wednesday.
21st.
It's 1 week from tomorrow.
Okay, 120 you said?
I've got 120, 140, 220, and 240.
120?
120?
Yeah.
Any other board comment or concerns?
Yeah, I think that it would be really silly to have a workshop based on something that hadn't been already distributed and talked about.
Duly noted. I think what Adam was referring to is some of the stuff is clearly site-specific, but some of it is just the general process, because this project's going to go through the general process just like anything else. And for the people that are less familiar with the 40B process, what the information you're going to get there is going to apply to this project and every other one you see going forward. But clearly, this project has a whole set of
Other issues.
other issues, you
Yeah.
know, because
Very
all of
unique
the projects that I can recall, whether they were approved or not, were in areas where water was available, sewer was available, you know, infrastructure was better in terms of road access and things like that. But certainly a lot of information to digest, so. Any other comments, concerns? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Excellent. Any discussion on adjourning? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Don't go anywhere, you have plans to sign.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, if we're going to be talking about O'Brien and our response, then I'm all in. But if it's just